if you really read closely, and Stalin is even a little bit more readable than Hitler.
Yeah.
Stalin writes better. Hitler is maybe a better speaker, but
I've never heard a critical review of their writing before, Slavoj. I'm really glad.
No, you should, because I read Mein Kampf, extremely boring, repetitive book. The only thing that should interest you is, if you ask a simple question in your terms, does Hitler know that he is cheating, lying, or not? The only consistent answer is yes and no. Can I get in a debate? Another aspect where I hope we will find similar language is when you mentioned like this, consciously lying, you yourself don't believe in it, but, and I'm honored here to refer to, I don't know where she is, my colleague Alenka Zupancic, who wrote, she sits somewhere here, fuck her, I don't know where, who developed this idea of disavowal in the sense that, you know, one way things function today is that you follow in your practice, in your, not in a many mystical Marxist sense, in your practical activity, you follow certain idea, but if I ask you directly, you would say, no, it's not really, I don't really believe in it. The French have this wonderful expression, je sais bien, mais quand même. I know it's not true, but nonetheless. And how then would you react? Of course you would, but it interests me how. To this, what really depressed me. Some of my American friends made analysis of how it works when Trump is caught lying, as he often is. With his quite a vast circle of faithful followers, not only this doesn't hurt him, this helps him. You know why? Because their reasoning goes like this. This proves that Trump is sincere and not totally manipulated by his advisors and so on. He simply says what he thinks and so on. And this, and Trump even goes so far that I think he is quite close. I cannot make judges psychologically about him, and I don't want to spend time going deep into him. But he has this, the way he uses rumors is really some kind of a practical indifference towards truth or you remember that ridiculous 1 minute or less fake movie about Trump Gaza, all bright casinos and so on. It was made as a joke. Then Trump used it on his platform and so on. And then no problem. What I'm saying is that am I reading you correctly here? That what you are saying, it's crucial for you, and I know, I follow you, my KGB, mental KGB work. What you are saying should absolutely not be confused with any of this cheap truth is relative, just a discursive contract and all that bullshit. Here I want to, as a good with human face Stalinist, ask you to clarify your position.
Yeah, so that is exactly what I set out to do with Closure, is that I think we are in a situation where we have, as a result of our exploration of the world with those good Enlightenment observation principles, uncovered that we can't find a final version of the world, that there isn't a God's eye view, that we are always from a perspective. But there's a fundamental problem with that, which is, in that case, how does it work at all? If you've got all of these different things, how does it work? Yeah. And that is what the framework that I'm putting is trying to, and it's exactly trying to deal with. So my response to that is that I think we're making precisely the wrong move at the moment. There's a lot of move against the Enlightenment principles, which were centrally observation, have a look at what's going on in the world, and reason, follow through a conclusion from here to somewhere else. And there's a lot of suspicion of those for lots of reasons that I fully understand. They're associated with establishment frameworks and power and all sorts of things. But we shouldn't be giving up those. Those are the tools, as it were, to refine our closures. The one that we have to give up is the one about reality. We have to, 120 years ago or something, Nietzsche said, God is dead. We've killed him. Well, what do we replace it with? Reality. And it's time now that we killed reality. It has exactly the same character as God. It is everywhere and everything, and it is both unobtainable and indescribable. And the idea that there's some ultimate thing that our closures are pointing to is dangerous. It leads us all to think, oh, I got it right. That's how it is. But what we need to do instead is to double down on those ideas of observation and reason. So if somebody comes up with their account of the world in the sort of Trump version, of course, what you do is say, but what about this over here? This doesn't fit in with the photograph I've just seen that you used only yesterday. We use those bits of observation and reason with them in order to challenge their closure and to say, no, that doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I can't stand where you're standing. And so we can keep the things that really matter, that enable us to refine how we think, and at the same time, abandon the notion that we are uncovering the true nature of reality.
Can I go on here? Okay, I'm sorry that we reduce you only to
the nodding.
Yeah,
please.
Although, in my bad taste way, I will say again.
There's a Stalinist in there waiting to come out.
He's not nodding with enough respect and gratitude.
Yeah, quite, absolutely. It's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. No, sorry.
No, please continue.
Let me go on, because you know what traumatized me at the level of what I just basically agreeing with you. I like to complicate things. This paradoxical example, as you've seen. Yeah. One of most depressing things, I've written about it 20 years, 30 ago, so you haven't, probably all of you don't know it. In mid-90s, 30 years ago, I met some guys from Hamburg. They also have an institute, research institute, but a smaller one than Frankfurt, who, through bribery, went to Moscow. These were Yeltsin years, much more open to bribery and so on, and got a complete dossier of a small Stalinist trial, not a big one. And it's just in some factory, big factory, but not local factory, things went wrong, and from the Stalinist perspective, there must be traitor, because the Stalinist dogma is, we have very good trained experts, party follows the people support us, so if something goes wrong, there must be Trotskyites, traitors, or whoever. Okay, so they did as great Stalinists do. First, some narrow committee met and picked up the traitors. Then through torture, they all confessed, and then something horrible happened in the middle. It happens once in 1,000 cases. They discovered that one of the accused really is a British spy. Everything changed, and this is tragedy. The result was that he got a much better treatment because he became valuable to be exchanged for other, isn't it horrible when the system gets so deeply embedded in a lie, that...
But isn't the lesson of that example that we should always be wary of the way that we defend our own closures, that we're always at risk of that Stalinist move of thinking, well, there must be some traitors, so we've got to find them. And that applies to our frameworks as well, that we always make that move. I mean, you could have chosen the Catholic Church instead of Stalin. Plenty of burning of people in the history of the Catholic Church. And there are many frameworks which if we imagine that somehow they're true, we endlessly add to them and we start creating structures which are extremely dangerous. And we need to be aware of that, not because we just pick out the Stalins, but it's true for us.
Okay, now another provocation. I'm trying to provoke you. If you seriously read, I'm making a bad taste joke, don't be afraid, the two greatest minds of 20th century, Stalin and Hitler, no? If you really read closely, and Stalin is even a little bit more readable than Hitler.
Yeah.
Stalin writes better. Hitler is maybe a better
I have to
speaker,
say,
but
I've never heard a critical review of their writing before, Slavoj. I'm really glad.
No, you should, because
My-
I read Mein Kampf in English, extremely boring, repetitive book. The only interesting thing that should interest you is, and my other friend who is not here, Mladen Dolar, wrote about it, is that, you know, if you ask a simple question in your terms, does Hitler know that he is cheating, lying, or not? The only consistent answer is yes and no. He, at the same time, obviously believes in what he is saying, but from time to time, he, as it were, discloses his formula. You know those famous passages, if you repeat a thing often enough, a lie becomes truth, and so on. So it's this strange functioning of the mind, which incidentally, that should interest you. The other thing that I discovered through my Russian friends who get access to some Stalinist archives is that the idea was this naive, cynical one. Stalinists, when the inner circle met, they spoke much more openly, fuck democracy, we know, we are blah, blah, blah. The shock is that even in the narrow circle, with maybe a cynical touch here and there, they spoke the same language. It's pretty horrifying. But what I want to tell you is, sorry, to go to a question, because I feel now more to put it, and I like this, with my respect to you, that I like to feel now like a cup giving you what they call a third degree. Questioning, no? And your duty is to not.
Absolutely. We only have a few more moments.
Go on,
Slavoj,
Comrade
please
Stalin,
keep
and so on. No, sorry, very seriously. You know, what about this paradox? I think it touches very deeply your point. That, and this is how I read. I'm very critical of Marx. But his commodity fetishism, his idea, read Marx carefully, is not commodities are just an objective social process and fetishism is how we perceive it. No, no, no. Marx said that capitalism, the illusion is not in how we think, but how we act on the market. You have something, illusions, which we follow in our life without even being fully aware of it. So the nice paradox, here I come to your point, is that we should, but we cannot simply distinguish what within our view appears as this is really happening, that is illusion, because there is reality in the naive sense of social processes, which only can function through illusions being embodied in them. And this is what interests me. This is one of the things, not many, which I think, if properly read, is still alive in Marx. This idea of objective illusion. You are not an idiot. You even know it's not true, but in your activity you follow it. Like my joke, I'm not anti-Semitic, but many of Jewish friends are telling me as a joke, we know there is no God, but he nonetheless gave us the land of Israel, you know, along those lines. How would you apply this basic idea, illusion, but on which, you know who knew this? Sorry, just this. He's not an idiot, he should be reread. Jeremiah Bentham. His theory of fiction is mega important. It's not simply let's distinguish between fictions and reality. He knows that our notion of reality always embodies fiction. So strike back, please.
Yeah. So certainly. So I think the Hegelian Marxist move of solving the paradoxes that we find ourselves, to say that there's a paradox in reality or there's a contradiction in reality, is of course not a framework that I am attracted to. I mean, I did at some point toy with this in my student days writing about Hegel, but I don't think that we can make sense of the notion of a contradiction in reality. What does it mean to say, there is a contradiction in reality? And I am uncomfortable about the idea that, well, there is the reality out there and there's a correct answer, so that dialectical materialism will lead us to the truth. They always have a sort of fissure in the closure that, I would say the fissure in the closure of the Marxist story is that we are all victim of our ideology, but somehow Marx isn't victim of the ideology of his particular era. So he manages to escape perspective and capture. So what I would say is this is a very powerful framework which has all sorts of consequences, that has been used in all sorts of ways by all sorts of people. It can be very helpful in terms of understanding certain aspects of the way that societies develop, and the essential maybe notion that the economy is the primary motor of change. I think all of those things are really powerful insights that came through Hegel and Marx. But it's a mistake if we start thinking that it's true. There's a whole load of Marxists who imagine there's one truth, and we know what happens. There's a whole variety of different versions of Marxism, all of whom think that they've got the right truth, and they should get rid of everyone else who doesn't hold exactly their version of truth. And that's because it's a notion that instead of being able to strengthen a closure and build on it, thinking it's a way of intervening in the world, it's very useful in this way of imagining that you might actually arrive, and that move that you might arrive is the dangerous bit, and why you end up indeed with Stalin, because he believes it. He believes that he's doing things. I think we often have the notion that Stalin is like, some terrible tyrant who is an evil. No, he really imagined that he was bringing a better place to everybody. And that's the bit that's dangerous, is the belief. And we just have to recognize we are just at risk. It's not just all of these lunatics out there. We are the people at risk of running away with our closures and thinking that we've uncovered the truth.
But you know what, nonetheless, sorry, very briefly.
Very briefly.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below.
With a free trial, you can enjoy the full talk and thousands more.
Thank you for being part of the conversation.